Oh, let's see here. I know I'm probably making a few too many videos for you, but I finally, after several days, uh, got this system back, I think, working pretty well. So I'm just uh, so happy. I think I want to make a video or two while it's still working. Um, I like this headset, and I like doing it with the headset, except kind of pushing kind of hard on my head. But I don't have any brain, so I don't have to worry about damage to my brain, I guess. Probably shouldn't say that. Something bad probably happened to my brain. Um, I'm not sure because everything is working right now, and this is the Avery Media uh, camera, and it's nice. The Razor, I like it, the video better, but there's pros and cons of both. But these are both excellent, and there's a lot of other excellent, USB cameras and things out there. And then of course you can always use, uh, a camera, a digital camera, a regular digital camera. I did that a few times. And I even I still think I have it, the power supply, the thing that I can take the battery out of the camera and put in this little fake battery, but that's hooked to the, AC, and so don't have to worry about that. I should have really spent more time um, with my, camera, and but I do also like the simplicity of, the having it and having it just sitting there, and and I've used a whole bunch of, USB webcams, and I don't know how many. Uh, my son's got one. I don't think he ever uses. I sort of hope he doesn't. Darlene, the ex-wife, has got one. She's got one that was from quite a few years ago that I got. I think I was sent to review. I think that was one of the things I was sent to review, and she was selling a lot of stuff on eBay, and she used, the that USB camera for taking pictures of this stuff. Um, she does not. It drives me crazy. She doesn't want to spend any kind of time at all, and I mean I'm sort of that way, but not nearly. I think that the computer should be doing all the work, and I shouldn't have to go study up all kinds of ways to, figure out how to use it and whatever. I think you just ought to be able to use it. But she doesn't want to learn the most simple commands that you need. And she also, when something comes up, some kind of a problem, she plays games. When I say she plays games, she's not playing. I don't play. She's not. The only thing I have played is Civilization 6, I think it is, or 3, whatever. And but she plays these, solitary, and then some few others that, are sort of I can't explain it, but she'll be having some kind of a problem, and she'll ask me to help her, and I'll go in and she's playing the game, solitaire or something, and I'll say okay, and then she wants to finish her game of solitaire, and then she really doesn't want to, and I've, I got all kinds of Chrome computers she could use and all, she just wants to use Windows. Of course, I can't complain about that, but she just, it's such a pain when and I don't even want to mess with her computer because she'll do stuff like, she'll say, how do I do such and such, and I'll look at the computer. Where's the menus? And she will have expanded, everything so that the menus are off, off the side. And she just doesn't want to. She just learned just enough to do what she needed to do. Now, she was doing a great job of selling on eBay. She had that down finally after a while. So she's using our son's laptop, and she's plugged into that, and of course I gave her, the keyboard after, but it's always a problem, I said, I have a whole bunch of keyboards. I have a closet full of keyboards, I know. but it took me a while to get her to go to a bigger and better, keyboard, and then to go to one that was lighted, and just everything she just doesn't want, because she wants to, just play her games and watch her, the game shows and television 24. She goes to sleep with it going, it goes just, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if I try to talk to her when she's watching Let's Make a Deal or whatever one of those things are, she just tunes me out. And then, like the writers are on strike, the writers who write for movies and TV and all that kind of stuff. So I guess even the game shows now, they have writers. And so there's some repeat. And of course she has access to years of these things, and she watches those over again. But like when they're not on strike or whatever, I go in and she'll be watching Let's Make a Deal or something like that, and she's paying attention to that, and she's watching to see if they win the little award or if they get the thing right, and she just tunes me out. So it looks like the camera is working, and sometime I'll probably add this other camera, but I just don't want to do it. I don't want any more problems with this. And this microphone is working, great. I don't need the because I'm not listening to anything through the headphones. So kind of hurts the head. I know I could get just a microphone. In fact, I have a couple. I think the microphones mainly that I had were for my digital cameras. Everything right now appears to be working okay. Let's see. I've got this view set up with, my little picture up there. Let's see. And I got this one ready to go, and I could put something up in the corner here. It could be like pictures. I have tons of pictures, that I've taken over the years. My goal was to organize them and have a story go along, like this is when I was in California, and some of the pictures have, of course, dates on them and that kind of stuff. A long time ago, I was trying to get these, and it's like, got too many pictures, still pictures. But it's kind of funny. Well, one I think I saw in my mother, or my parents. Well, my dad, I doubt ever looked at it, but the baby book or whatever, my footprint and the things that people did. They may not do that anymore because of, computers and cell phones and taking all those kind of pictures. But I've got the book here someplace that shows. And so, the first step that the baby took and that kind of stuff. And I think it's in there that it's mentioned that in California that that we had a cat and stuff like that. And I think the cat, if I remember correctly, we were living in Haight-Ashbury, which is the hippie area. But the only thing is, this was before the hippie area. And there's the address and I looked using, Google Maps or whatever. And that building where we were living looks like it's the same now as it probably was, back then. But anyway, I wouldn't do it, but, I could say, I lived in, Haight-Ashbury, the hippie area, where there was drugs and all that, but that was years later. But I've got a whole bunch of pictures. I would like to put them together, but when I got a scanner here, and I could take them probably with my cell phone, and it'd probably be, but it's a lot of work. But there are some stories there. But nowadays, I think people take, pictures with their cell phones, and they never, pictures of their breakfast, their lunch, and their dinner, and I doubt they ever look at those pictures again. So I've got two monitors here, and I like that system. And I've got my $200 Dell computer, which is working great. Then I've got my old computer, which gave up the ghost, and I think it's pretty much a paperweight. Got a printer that's working. I've gone through a bunch of printers. I've gone through a lot of stuff. I have wasted so much money on computer stuff. One of the hospitals that I quit, it wasn't St. Joe Hospital, Trinity Hospital, I think that was. And I put into the tax sheltered annuity program or whatever that was. And I think the hospital put in a certain amount extra, I think, at that hospital. And then, so I worked there 5.5 years. I might not have put into it for the first year, but when I quit, I cashed in, which you're really not supposed to do. I mean, it's really super stupid, but of course I would do that. I took out the money, and I bet you could never guess what I spent it on. Computer stuff. And then I worked at another hospital, and when I quit there, I took the money out of that's okay. You're looking at somebody. If anybody says, you know somebody who's really stupid, say, yes, I know this guy, because I'm living on Social Security now and a small retirement pension for working 18 years at a hospital of $175 a month. And that's what I'm living on. And it'd have been a lot better if I'd have had the money from Trinity and the money from research. But would have been a lot better. I don't know if you can see it behind me or not. But this orange one here, KW Dart Truck Company. And I just found out when I purchased off of eBay from a guy that had this page out of the mining journal or whatever it was for an advertisement for Dart Truck Company, who also own Kenworth trucks. I did not know till I got this, I don't know, a couple months ago, that I was working as a welder there for 5 or 6 years or something like that. Good pay. UAW, United Auto Workers Union. I didn't know that was the only plant. I thought because we were selling so many of these gigantic trucks, and they were going for mining, and they were going to South Africa, and some of our people who had a little more seniority than I did were actually going with the trucks to South Africa, and the trucks were taken in parts down into the mines, and then our workers put them together, put them back together. We built them and took them apart and put them back together. But I wonder if I had. I got married at age 26. And I was working at the Dart Truck Company. The pay was good, the benefits were good, we had all the overtime. That's why they was the only plant. I guess that's why the overtime was. And there were hundreds of people, working there building these trucks. And then, of course, next door they were building the Kenworth trucks. And I was working overtime. We were all working overtime. I mean, a bunch of overtime. And then, I don't know how many hours a day, 10 hours a day or something, 6 days a week or something like that. And then I got married, and Darlene had just started a tropical fish shop. In fact, I got her number, and she was 18, I was 26. I got her number, and I called her, and she was just setting up her tropical fish shop. And I don't blame her. Her parents owned a bar, and my parents went to that bar, and my mother, I guess, was telling her, well, she wouldn't have been there, telling her mother how great her son was, and her mother was telling my mother how great her daughter was. And then my mother got their phone number, or got, Dar's phone number, and gave me the phone number. And I didn't want any part of, I don't drink, don't go in bars. Well, I've gone into bars because I was doing security and I had to go into bars, one of the jobs that I worked for a while, at like 2 o'clock in the morning, I had to go. I was security. I had a major city to patrol, but the salesman had also signed up. I had to go at like 2 a.m. in the morning and go in and get the everybody to leave. And it actually worked out okay, but it was a tavern that was right next to a naval air station, and the Marines were stationed there. And the company, they didn't give me any, they just gave me the list of the places I had to patrol and the times. They didn't have me ride with them even once to go and find the places, and it was just, but anyway, the supervisor said, now when you go in there at 2 o'clock and everything, be sure and take your nightstick. And I said, okay. Then, of course, they never even went with me for so the first time I pulled up, 2 o'clock in the morning, well, I got there before 2, and everything, and I thought, the supervisor said I should I'm not taking the nightstick in. One of those Marines will just jam it up my ass or whatever. So I went on in, and then the bartender finally announced, okay, bar's closing, no more drinks. And I waited a little bit, and I said, everybody, everybody needs to leave. And then a Marine came over to me, young guy, of course, He says, so it's your job to get us out of here. And I said, yep, that's my job. And he says, something, I can't remember exactly what he said, but, something like, do you think you can do it? And I said, well, I don't have much choice. I'm going to have to try to put you out of here, and I guess we're going to have to see what you do. I said something like that, And then he went and sat back down. But every time a guy got up and they were going pissing and everything, I'd take their stool and turn it up on, on the table, whatever, and they went out. I never had any trouble. And, I was doing that 5 days a week or whatever. And I never had any trouble with them. But I think if I'd have taken the nightstick in, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. I'd probably be standing up. Might still have that up my ass. Anyway, so I called. I had Darlene's phone number. I wasn't going to call her. But I was coming home. I was working the second shift. Yeah. So I was coming home, and the route that I came through Swoke Park and then came out. And then right there was the 63rd Street drive-in movie theater. Oh, come on, you guys don't know what a drive-in movie theater is. Oh, please, please. Okay, use your imagination. People sat outside in their cars and watched on a big screen. Anyway, so they were leaving there. And so I was coming home from work. And so here they come, the cars, one after another. Guy driving, a young guy, and the girl sitting on his lap or whatever. This is before mandatory seat belts. Oh, you didn't know that you didn't always have to wear seat belts? And so I just think I got home and at some point I decided, So I called, and that's when the day that she was filling the fish tanks up. Her mother was there helping her fill the fish tanks up. And I called, and, she told me, later that, of course, that I was 26 and my parents were alcoholics, and she didn't want any part of that. But I called, and she said, oh, well, I said, how about let's go take in a movie? And she said, well, I've got to fill these water tanks, with fish tanks, with water and everything. And I said, maybe I could come over and visit with you a little bit. She said, oh, well, okay. She couldn't get out of it, I guess. So I had a station wagon, by the way. I was so square. So I went over and I started, filling up the fish tanks. I said, how do you fill them up, And then I filled them up for her, and then I said, okay, we got time to go to the movie. And we were married shortly after that. And then, I don't know how long it was, a year or something, year and a half or something, the union at Dart Truck went on strike. And no, it hadn't gone on strike yet, but she wanted me to. She said, her mother doesn't want to help her anymore, and of course she was handicapped. She had to use crutches to get around. It uses a wheelchair now. She got polio when she was about 5. Oh, for those of you who don't know what polio is, and if you're the right wing, Republicans who don't believe that vaccines work or whatever, well, you're fucking stupid. She got polio when she was about 5. And right after that, the vaccine came out and nobody got polio anymore. Except over in Vietnam or some places like that. Maybe not Vietnam, where the Taliban or whatever kills or beats up healthcare workers that go in there from, like, the United Nations. They withdrew, the healthcare workers because the Taliban or whichever country it was over there, told the people that it was an attempt to inject them with pig stuff or something, or whatever it was, something that their religion objects to or something. And but as soon as the vaccine came out, all the, but at the grade school I went to, and that's about the time that the vaccine was given, about that time. And I think I was in the 5th or 6th grade, was whenever it came out, everybody got it. But one girl in our class, 1955, she got polio and she was paralyzed. And real nice girl. And I saw a few years later in the Kansas City Times or the Kansas City Star, the newspaper, a picture of her, older, I'm guessing 18 or something like that, and her father built like a skateboard thing because she wanted to walk down the aisle, and he built it, and of course she was, standing on it, and then he was holding her arm as she went, down the aisle. But Darlene wanted me to, so anyway, I quit. I told her, let me hold on till we go on strike, and she, no, it's got to be now, So I wonder what, if I'd have continued working there with their pension, United Auto Workers pension, things might be different. Anyway, we had the tropical fish shop for 4 years. And then moved on to another job and another job and another job. I saw the news today, I think on CNN's webpage, it's surprising that, this is, September, October. This is October, isn't it? January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August. Yeah, this is August. Yeah. I'm kind of surprised that they can come up with a number. I guess it's easy for them. They have pretty much an idea of what prices are and everything. They're saying that it looks like those of us who are on Social Security, and it also applies, I think, to the military and to railroad workers if they no longer have their railroad insurance, and people like government employees. It used to be government employees were, but I think eventually that was changed too for them. Everybody's on Social Security. And of course, some of those people were on the government pension plan, and so they get, they're getting two. They're getting the government pension plan, and they're getting the. So I think that will be about, because the paper or CNN says that the average Social Security person will get, if it is 3%, about $58. And I'm always the always the average when they give it. I don't have to do the math or whatever because I always am the average. And okay, this is about 30 minutes, and I really just wanted to make sure again that this was working. And hopefully it looks like it is working. And I may set up the other camera. Sometimes I can't help myself from hooking up everything that I have. I think if you happen to work for KW Dart Truck Company and you worked for them for 20 or 30 years or something, probably please don't tell me what the pension is, because I don't want to know. I actually quit the post office also, but I didn't work for them very long because I have a problem with authority. My son-in-law, when I went 2 weeks to Washington, D.C. to visit with my daughter and her husband, he mentioned to me, because he knew that I had, well, he wasn't around then, but he had heard that I wanted to get into the military and make a career in the military. And he said, whatever made you think, when Washington, D.C. whatever made you think that you would, work out in the military as much as you are, don't like authority and don't like people telling you what to do and that kind of stuff. And I said, I really didn't have any idea what the military was really like. I mean, I went to a military high school and for 4 years, military every day of the week, for 4 years, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think I might have known, that I had to adapt and change, but yeah, and all the time that I was like welding, I did have with the superintendent of the plant at the Dart truck plant, because there I mentioned, that we were working a lot of overtime, 6 days a week, more than 8 hours a day, and then they added another hour to it. And the plant, there was hundreds working there. And guess who the only person who refused to work the overtime, just the overtime, the 1 hour overtime? Guess who that was? Oh, that was me. And when I showed up, right away, the superintendent, he was waiting for me. And he started coming for me. I was ready for him. And then the union steward, the person that's there, he's still a worker, but he's also, there to deal with bosses and stuff like that. But I was sorry to see him heading that way because I wanted to take care of it. And anyway, the union steward came over, and that was the the superintendent was saying, you need to, I told you, that, and the union steward said, no, it's in our union contract, blah 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 blah. So I didn't get to. But if you happen to work there for 20 years or something like that, please don't tell me what you're making, because I'd be sitting here. Well, let's see. If I was making that, I could buy that brand new computer, and I could be happy doing that kind of stuff. I like to spend money, and that's not a good thing. And my parents never, well, they were alcoholics, but now I was never I cannot remember ever being spanked. I was not abused in any way, even when they would pass out and I would pour their expensive whiskey down the drain. And I don't think they actually believed me. Well, I thought I had, the next morning, I thought I had, and I poured it down the drain, I don't think they believed me. My dad, passed out a few times in the car, in the driveway, not pulled into the garage, but just in the driveway, and I waited. Of course, it wasn't extreme heat or whatever. I waited till it got dark, and then I went out and drug him inside. But like I said, I was never abused, but I was basically like alone. They both worked. They never missed a day's work, even though they, would come home and drink. And two, I don't think I had an allowance. I think my mother would just say, do you need money? And I'd say yes, but she didn't give me, she gave me enough to buy candy bars and Cokes. I passed back then there were a lot of family stores run by a family, an Italian family, I guess. But I guess probably it depended on where in the country, but they were, you know, there wasn't any Walmart and all those kind of places. And but now I did, and I didn't, like a lot of kids, I guess, had a newspaper route. I didn't have a newspaper route. I mean, I cut the grass, of our place and did some things, but I was just handed some money. That may have had something to do with it. I don't know. But boy, things were, drinks came in. That'd be a thing outside of one of these little stores, and you'd put your coins in, and then you had to slide the bottle around, and then pop the cap off, and the cap would fall down into a container there. And then we'd go and empty that container of the caps, and we'd use those for like gambling, I mean, not real, playing cards and gambling. But those drinks were so fantastic. It was in a glass bottle, and oh man, I don't think you find anything like that nowadays. I don't know why, but even when I was in grade school, well, the first grade school I went to, Holy Name, the nuns had a bottle of water blessed by the priest, in the cabinet there. And I came in with a water gun. Now, this would have been in the first grade through the fourth grade, but I had to do the second grade twice. But yes, I did. I took my water gun and put holy water into it. And then out in the playground, I was squirting the kids. And then they were kneeling down and making the sign of the cross, and the nuns saw that. They weren't too happy with me. But I wasn't a bad kid. And we didn't know what drug. It was a Catholic school, and maybe just the public schools. Maybe they didn't know what drugs were either. I mean, we didn't know what. So that was, let's see. So what did I do so the next school that I went to, St. Vincent's, where my father went to school there, and all his brothers and sisters, his 6 brothers and 3 sisters all went to St. Vincent's, and the priest that was there when I was going there had, him and my father were boys together, and they both went to the Conception Seminary to go become priest, and then my father decided nope. And he didn't want to be a priest. Well, this guy went ahead and became a priest, so he was the pastor when I was there. But the rule at the school was that you had to eat in the cafeteria at the school, or you could walk home, and go home and eat. Well, there was nobody at home, and I never walked home. I just walked across the street from the school, and on the corner was a drugstore. And I would have what was it? I think it was a hot dog and a malt or something like that. Was it a hot dog? That doesn't sound bad enough. But anyway, I did that every day. Somebody ratted me out. I was sitting there on the stool, and then I saw, oh shit, here comes the principal, the nun, in her cassock or whatever, with the beads, flying in the air or whatever, and she came in and grabbed me by the ear and took me all over the church. And Father Oscar Huber, the priest who eventually, by the way, gave the last rites to John F. Kennedy in Dallas. Anyway, he kind of slammed me into the church wall. He didn't hurt me, And I'd kind of, at the time, I didn't think about it. I mean, him and my dad were kids together. And of course, his family had like 7 or 8 kids, and everybody else's family had 7 or 8 kids. But um, I was an only child. Um, but I kind of wondered when he slammed me into the wall and said, "Don't do that anymore," or something like that. I kind of thought, it didn't hurt. And was he, hey, you know, not hurting me because, of course, what I did is I didn't go to the drugstore across the street anymore. I walked the other direction down the street, and there was a donut shop. This had been about noon, by the way. And I went in, and they had they had drinks, but the root beers were all in glass bottles, and the root beer was ice cold, and the donuts were so good. So I guess I'm always in a way a little bit, but actually, well, when I worked at the post office, I quit after I think 6 weeks because I didn't like being told what to do and the way that they did it and the way everything was set up. If I could have been hired in to be a mail carrier going door to door, I'd probably still be working well, not with my prostate and that kind of stuff, but I would have, but instead I was sorting California mail into bags, And then you got 30 minutes for every 2 weeks there for a while. They hired in 200 of us. And that first time, there was 200, according to your score. And I was number 200 on the list. But of course, veterans and maybe some other people, they got extra point on their test. I don't know how many. Now, if they were in combat or something, they got an extra point or two. And if they were, I think, got a Purple Heart, they were injured or something, they got so. But anyway, I was number 200, but then they hired in 200 more people who would have been, lower than me. And then 200 more. But at the post office there, you got 30 minutes for lunch with 200 people. So I would be with my tray, and the 30 minutes would be up. And they all went back, I stayed, and then I sat down and I looked at my watch. Okay, now my 30 minutes starts. It was great having unions. Of course, there wasn't any union there. But then I'd go back, and the other people looked at me. Now, that's before, there for a while, we had a rash of people who worked at the post office shooting other post office workers and stuff. That was a thing we went through, and it was the joke going around or something. What does it mean when the flag is flying at half-mast, on the post office or something? It means they're hiring. And and two, there was a thing called a scheme. I wouldn't have hired it, In fact, I had just finished a welding job in Convent, Louisiana, building a Texaco refinery. And I got home, and in all my mail, I didn't owe any money, everything was paid for. And opened up the mail bag and started going through, taking out things from the shortwave radio broadcasting stations that I listened to, and took out the QSL card, and just, and there was a thing from the post office says report Monday morning. Now I'd taken the test, but the government kept, which they were doing for a while, especially Republicans, did not want to hire any more federal employees. And the Democrats back then kind of went along with it. Okay, it'll make the voters happy. Wouldn't make the people who had took, the civil service exam happy, but it'd make the people, we're not spending money, So I was surprised that I got it, but I went down and got hired in. Oh, had to go through this paperwork. Did I belong to any of these organizations? And there was pages of them, and I had to check. No, 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 no. One was the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. It was in the United States a bunch of people who were communists in the United States. The Communist Party used to run people for president, in the United States. There's going to be a bunch of people out there. No, they didn't. Okay, I'm sorry, you're so stupid, And um, and they went. The Abraham Lincoln Brigade went to Spain to fight with the people who were fighting the Germans who were coming over to try out their tanks and that kind of stuff in the Civil War there. And but then the other thing I found out was, when I hired in, they may have changed things. I think they have changed things with the post office, but okay, because somebody asked, we're in a classroom learning California, where the mail, there's a box, we had to learn it. And, where does mail for Santa Ana go? Where does mail for Santa Cruz go? Where does mail for, and you had to be able to do that within a certain amount of time, certain number of cards, they had to be correct. But somebody asked, well, how do I get another different job here rather than doing, this? They said you had to learn the scheme, and then you learned the other scheme, and then you could go over and do that. And I thought that sucked. But I know later on, years later, I know somebody was going to the post office. I mean, just the local post office, and going in and getting hired as maybe part-time, maybe full-time. I'm sure they still had to take the civil service exam or something, I think. Maybe the part-time people didn't, but yeah, if I would going door to door, even if it was in a bad neighborhood, and even when it was wintertime, I think I'd have still been working there. And I'd have been checking on making sure that people were, old people were okay if they didn't pick them, stuff like that. But, so, and when I did the 2000 census, and when we did the long form, I don't think they asked how much a person made, but there were questions. But anyway, I could see where they lived and stuff, For the short form was short form. For the long form, some of those were retired, postal workers, and they had some nice cars and nice homes and everything else. So, anyway, I thank you for watching, and my throat is hurting again. Anyway, thank you very much.